The Legend of the Coconut Tree. A retelling of the Polynesian folktale by PJ Leonard. Scattered like loose leaves in a vast lake, there are a family of islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, known as the Society Islands. The island of Bora Bora is one such island. Even if you were to visit it now, you would find a tropical paradise where time feels as though it has stood still for eternity. An extinct volcano ringed by a rich lagoon water, teeming with bright-coloured fish, diamond-white sands, and sprawling forests reaching up to the slopes of the cloud-flecked mountains. But perhaps the most famous symbol of this island are the coconut trees, arching over the beaches, swaying in the warm breeze, and dropping their sweet, milky seeds for people to drink and enjoy. But it was not always this way. Countless years ago, when the world was young and gods walked the land and sea as real as any man, there were no coconut trees. The story of how they came to be starts with a young girl, Hina, who lived on the island as the daughter of a humble farmer. Now Hina was a sweet girl who grew into a fine young woman whose beauty became famed across the Society Islands. And not just to humans. The Prince of Eels, who roamed the warm waters of the Pacific looking for someone to take as his wife, had caught word of Hina. He declared that she would marry him long before they had even met, and would head to Bora Bora immediately. When Hina caught word of this news, she was horrified. She headed deep into the forests of the island, through the caves of Mount Otimanu, and into the domain of the fishing god Hero. Hero answered to no one. He was not unkind, but he kept to himself, preferring the company of the water and the fish. But even the fishing god was struck by Hina's beauty, who declared it divine, and promised to help her. He took a strand of hair from Hina's head, tied a hook around it, and dipped it into the sea. The approaching Prince of Eels could not resist Hero's fishing hook, and as he bit into it, Hero pulled the prince out of the sea and chopped the eel up, wrapping each piece into a leaf. Before he died, the eel said to Hina, "All men hate me, but even in death, you will all kiss me and be thankful for it. You most of all, Hina." Hina ignored the Prince of Eels' warning. She could never imagine a time when she would kiss that eel's ugly face with its 2 dark spots for eyes and its tiny mouth, let alone be thankful for it. Hero placed the wrapped eel pieces into a bag for Hina to carry. "Hina, young beauty," he said, "you must bring this eel back to your home. Only there can you destroy it. But I fear that the Prince of Eels' warning is not just words. Do not let this eel out of your sight. Do not let go of this bag, or this curse may come true." Hina took the bag and headed back through the forest. The bag was heavy, and Hina soon became tired. Coming to a river, she decided to bathe to relax and soothe her aching body. She placed the bag down, and as she bathed in the river, her eyes did not leave the bag. When she came back to the farm, she laid the contents of the bag on the table. Her father, who had also been against his daughter marrying the Prince of Eels, was delighted, but as he unwrapped the leaves to look over each piece of the eel, his face became grim. "We cannot truly destroy this eel in fire unless we have all the pieces of the body," he said. "Hina, where is the head?" Hina looked over every piece herself. She hadn't taken her eyes off of the bag, and she had watched as the fishing god placed every piece in the bag. Where did it go? She raced back through the forest, and as she came to the riverside, she stopped. Everything here was as it had been moments before: the racing waters, the rustling bushes, the birds in the trees. Except for one thing. A new tree stood on the edge of the river. Taller than any other tree, the long trunk stretching above the forest canopy like the body of an eel, the long and spindly leaves swaying in the wind. Hina had never seen a tree like it before. And what was that in the armpit of the tree, tucked beneath the leaves? Was it the Prince of Eels' head? She wrapped her arms around the thin trunk and shook it until it fell out of the tree. It wasn't the eel's head. It was brown and hairy and almost as big as her own head. It was like a nut, but far bigger than any nut she had ever seen. As she picked it up, she felt something inside moving around. She shook it and heard liquid sloshing around inside. Her stomach grumbled, and she felt an overpowering urge to drink whatever was inside. As she tilted the nut, she saw 3 holes in the skin. The 3 holes reminded her of the Prince of Eels' face with those dark spots, and in that moment, Hina knew that the tree must have grown from the eel's head. As she drew the holes up to her lips to drink the liquid inside, the prophecy of the prince came true, that Hina would kiss him and be thankful for it. The milk inside of the nut was delicious. She shook the tree again to bring down more of these nuts, and gathering them in her arms, she ran back to the farm to share them with her father. Father also cracked open the nut to reveal the soft white flesh inside, which was also sweet and tasty. They called the nuts coconuts, named after Hina's mother, Coco, and together they farmed the seeds of the coconut tree on their farm. The word of the coconut and their wonderful flavour spread across the island, and soon the trees were spread all across the Society Islands. And as the Prince of Eels predicted, all men came to kiss him and be thankful for it as they tasted the milk of the coconut. But not for nothing was this a curse. Hina thought nothing of growing a whole orchard of coconut trees on the farm and selling them to the trading boats that came from afar to buy these legendary coconuts discovered by the famous beauty of Bora Bora. Until, one day, a ripe coconut fell from the tree and hit her on the head. Even though it was the biggest coconut the islanders had ever seen, it did not kill Hina, but it did disfigure her perfect face. The word of a curse spread throughout the islands, and nobody ever bought a coconut from Hina or her father ever again. Meanwhile, the world continued to kiss the Prince of Eels every time they tasted a delicious coconut. The end.